Welcome to Module 2 of Adobe Illustrator. In this one, we're going to need to start out with a new project. Um, all you do when you open up Adobe Illustrator, you can do this a couple ways. There should be a button here that says New or Command N, since I'm using a Macintosh computer. If you're using a Windows machine, it would be Control N. Up at the top, there's also this File button. If you hit File, New, it will give you the same exact option. So let's hit that, New, and we can call this Module 2. And I always choose Profile Print, and it doesn't really matter for what we're doing in this course. So choose what you would like and hit OK. To begin this one, we'll talk about this artboard. The artboard is exactly what it sounds like. It's the artboard or your canvas in which you can create your art or your graphics. Now, depending on your preset, you might get a different sized artboard, but it doesn't matter. We can always change the size of the artboard. This tool right here in the bottom left portion of the toolbar can help us to change the artboard. So if you click on that, we can now widen or increase the height of our artboard. And maybe even more useful is shrink the artboard to the size of our graphic if we need to. And that's helpful for exporting. But for now, I like starting out with a nice big canvas so I can just doodle and start creating my graphics. So how do we create graphics in Adobe Illustrator? Well, there's multiple ways. There's a few preset shapes that Adobe Illustrator gives us to use. You can use those, or you can start drawing basically freehand with other tools. So to start out, I just want to show you this rectangle tool. This rectangle tool allows us to create any square or rectangular object. And as you can see, it goes pretty much any way we'd like it to. If we want to make it kind of more like a tall rectangle or even a thick vertical line, we can do so. We can also create a perfect square. If you try to eyeball it, you might not get it. So what I do, you just hold down your Shift key and you can create a perfect square, which is very useful if you want your shapes to be perfect. To find out what other shapes we have, for one, I'm going to use the selection tool and just delete what I've created. But we can go over to this rectangle tool and right click it. And as we can see here, we've got rectangle, rounded rectangle, ellipse, polygon, star, and flare tool. Just to show a couple, you can play around with these on your own. The ellipse tool can create an oval or a perfect circle. If you hold down the Shift key, there's your perfect circle. And just like on any other application, you can copy and paste. In this case, I'm using a Mac, so it's Command C, Command V. On a PC, it would be Control C, Control V. Once you've selected an object, and you can then start creating whatever you'd like. Now, as you can see, another thing that we can do, say that you want to create a snowman. Well, you've got to get this circle on top of this circle, and then we need to shrink it. So let's move this circle down. Let's click on this circle and right click on it. Now let's arrange it and bring it to the front. What this does is this makes it the closest thing to your face. So now that's on top of that other circle. And let's size it down proportionally with our Shift key. And there's one. And I'm going to copy it and paste and shrink it. And as I copied and pasted, it kept this one on top of the previous object. So now you can start seeing the makings of a snowman, kind of looking downwards at the snowman. But that's just an example of what you can do with some of these preset shapes. So let's just delete. Let's check out another one, the star tool. So this will give us always a perfect star. We can then go and maybe if you take your direct select tool and want to, I don't know, move in a point and try to make it something else, you can do so. Now let's say that we want to get rid of some of these points. All we need to do is right click on our pen tool and find the delete anchor point tool. Okay? Now as we click on an anchor point, it will automatically delete it and create a new line to the next anchor point. So I'm going to delete this one as well, and that one, and this one, and even this one. So now I've got a brand new shape to work with. And I know you couldn't see those anchor points, so if you ever need to see the anchor points again, click on your direct select tool and click somewhere on the object, and you can quickly hover around the edge and find your anchor points. Alright, so that's one way you can start creating objects. The other is, we already saw the pen tool, so we'll have to right click on it again and go to the pen tool, or press the letter P, and that will give you your pen tool, and you can click and it will automatically start creating lines between wherever you click. You're creating anchor points as you go. So we're just creating a lumpy circle, and that's my new object. So I'm going to delete that and show you another part of the pen tool, which is putting curves within your anchor points. So if I click once and I click again, now let's say I click, hold the mouse down and drag, you can see it's starting to create a curve in the previous line that was made, but it's also going to set you up for another curvy line. So if I were to, I don't know, go over here and start making curvy lines, I mean, the curve will change as you move your mouse out or in closer to the anchor and change the direction until you can create whatever type of object you're trying to create. Okay. All right. Now one thing about objects, you can see, so let's create a rectangle here, or a perfect square rather. There's our perfect square again. And you can see it has a border. Now that's called the stroke of the object, or the outline of the object. And you can change the color of the stroke on any object, whether you made it with the pen tool or with the rectangle tool. Doesn't matter. You can change the thickness or color of the stroke. So let's go up to here. We can see it says stroke, and it's at 1 point. So that is the weight of the stroke. I'm going to increase this to a 5-point stroke. Now it's much more bold and we can see it even more clearly. To change the color of the stroke, you can do it multiple ways, really. There's multiple ways. Once you have the object selected, you can find this stroke right here, the color of the stroke. You can see that it's black, and you can tell it's dealing with the stroke because it has another box on the inside, so that this little icon is representing the outline, where this icon is representing the interior or the fill of the object. So Dealing with the stroke, let's change the outside to red. Alright, so now we have a box with a red outline. And if we want to change the interior or the fill of the object, then we just have to make sure that we have our object selected, and you can either drop down this menu or you can click on this and make sure that it is present and then click on a new color. Or again, like I said, you can go to this drop down menu and change the color to whatever you would like. So there we have our new square. So that's just an example. I'm going to do this now with the object that we will create with the pen tool, just to show that it works. And as you can see, it's already working because it's using the settings that we have just barely created. And that is a custom object with the stroke and fill identical to this square. So let's now see what happens if you take your stroke weight to 0. There is no outline. It is just the fill, and that's all you can manipulate at this point. As you can see, the fill turned to this white box with a red line through it. That means there's no fill. Okay, and the same thing happens if you change that white box to red line on the fill. Then your object can pretty much disappear into the artboard. It's still there, but you have to find it with your selection tool and start changing it again. So now that is what it would look like with no fill and just a stroke with the same settings as our other box. Well,